Hello and welcome to Fulhamish 300. We are now live. Hello, everybody, and welcome along to the show. We haven't started the podcast yet. This is just some preamble before we get going. So welcome along. We're live on YouTube. Dom is here. Hello, Dom.
Hello, Sammy.
Jack's here. Hello, Jack.
Hello, Sammy.
We've got Farrell Monk with his lovely little sign in the background. 300 Fulhamishes. Come on, you whites.
Have you spelled that wrong on purpose, fans?
Where?
It says like Fulhamish.
Oh yeah. I've just because big up the best German fullback ever, Philip Lahm.
Oh yeah,
Surely
I've only just realised that.
I will
dyslexia from Farrell.
The funny thing is, I set it up, and then my girlfriend was like, "Isn't it you whites, not?" And I had the Y and the W the wrong way around as well, so I had to change that. So I've got 4.
Come on, whites, you.
Come on, really right.
And Ben Jarman. Hello, Ben.
Hello, everyone.
How are we doing?
I'm good. Yeah, I've got a nice bottle of Rioja to get me through. I thought if I'm going to have to listen to Farrell for the next hour and a half, I might as well get absolutely battered while I'm doing it. So why not?
So
He's been planning to say that all day.
So what we're doing today
have.
This is our 300th podcast. We haven't actually started the podcast yet. This is just some absolute nonsense beforehand. The fact that Farrell's even spelt a sign wrong, I think, is symptomatic of what's going to be going on tonight. There's no game to talk about, so who knows what's going to be happening. Leave your questions in the comments, and we will try and get through to those as we go. But yeah, expect chaos. Loads of people getting involved in the comments already. Got Colm, Scott, Joe, a couple of the Fulhamish legends, George and Drew, the outsiders. Colm Burglar. Well, this is Fulhamish. Very nice.
Is this like a remix of "Well, This Is Christmas," but just done really badly?
Pretty much.
And what have you won?
Yeah,
Nothing.
exactly. Nah, with the Intertoto one time, I think.
Oh yeah, of course.
Right. Well, should we get going with the old podcast and all of that? Are we all ready?
Yeah, might be a good idea.
Might be a good idea. Okay. It's the Fulhamish podcast, your independent voice of Fulham FC. My name's Sammy James, and welcome to Fulhamish 300th. A 3-ton for Fulhamish, a 3-century not out, as we celebrate by talking about games that aren't happening. So it could be absolute chaos today. We are streaming this podcast live right now on YouTube. So we're going to be answering the questions as we go. And joining me on the podcast today is Dom Betts.
Hello.
Jack Collins.
Hello, listeners.
Farrell Monk.
Hello, friends.
And Ben Jarman.
Hello, everyone.
The delay is there
Yeah,
for all to see.
That lag.
The delay is there for all to see.
Was that me?
Good. This is starting how it's going to go on.
To be fair, this is like most of the intros to most podcasts we do.
Yeah, you're seeing how
Yeah,
it sounds once the editing's before the editing's done. So, chaps, let's discuss what's not happening at Fulham at the moment. I'll start with you, Jack. And 9 players reportedly positive for Fulham, according to the press. No league game until the 15th of January. And I saw someone put on Twitter earlier saying, is this a longer break than Fulham had in pre-season? Apart from the cup game, it's not far off, is it?
No, it's absolutely not. I'd just like to start this podcast by saying I never feel more like singing the blues that when Fulham get their games cancelled because of COVID restrictions and Chelsea lose. Oh, Fulham, you've got me singing the blues. So yeah, apart from that, it's obviously a big break, which is nice. It gives us a bit of a little bit of a respite. And I think we saw over the Christmas period, like a lot of games were quite stodgy, they were quite dull, and we saw players looking a little bit more tired and a little bit and over this weekend, people have started to sharpen up again. And actually, I kind of hope that with all this in mind, yes, Fulham are going to get a bit of fixture build up later into the campaign and into the season. But I do hope that this break gives us a little bit of that refresher that, doubles down, as you say, on the fact that we didn't get a pre-season.
Dom, do you think this has come at a good time or a bad time for Fulham? Is this going to work out well for us? Mark Holliday says, should we risk our first 11 in the cup matches this month? Do you think we'll see a strong lineup against QPR?
I think it's different for both games, really. I think Burnley being postponed might have come at a good time, but the Spurs game I would have quite liked to get ahead, because to be honest, I don't even know when that game can be rescheduled. If Spurs go well in the FA Cup as well, alongside, they've got their League Cup semi-final this week, then they've got obviously the Europa League games, which they'll probably want to go far in, because it's not a guarantee they're going to finish in the top four or anything. It's been a nice break, because it feels like ever since football came back after the restart, it's just been football, Fulham 24/7, and it is nice to, because it's not been a huge break. It's only probably been a week of no football. I mean, because our fixture list probably over Christmas period was probably the nicest out of most teams, really, because for us it was just a normal midweek, really. It was Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday, I want to say.
Yeah.
And so it's not been too bad. Obviously, the QPR game should be going ahead. I think I don't want to see 11 changes. I think if I do want to see, players like, Josh Onum, who's been playing a bit for the under-23s, I would like to see him, because I think he can't be any worse than Ruben Loftus-Cheek, and see what he can offer. The likes of Cabano and Kamara will probably feature. And even if Tete and Congolo have the right left fitness levels, I'd like to see them involved as well. But I think it has come at a good time, just because it's just been, not necessarily even for the Fulham side, just we don't have to, if it's not constantly Fulham. It is nice to have, especially this period as well, nice to actually have this sort of period off.
Are you just happy because it means you can watch the darts without Fulham interrupting?
Yes, that's correct.
This actually tonight has got in the way, because the dart starts in, well, I'd say just about 15 minutes, and you'd imagine this is slightly overrun. So, Sam, you've actually inconvenienced them quite a lot with this.
I'll just get up in a separate tab on the screen, and me and Jack can do a live watch along.
We can do a live watch along on the darts phone, which is clearly what everyone's here for.
Just for those who have been busy renovating houses and not watching the darts, can we have a quick summary of what's been happening?
Gary Anderson is an absolute shagger. Is what's happened so far. No, to be fair, it's been, because then there's no fans there. It's been a very good tournament so far. MVG got battered by Chizzy the other night, 5-0, whitewash. Hasn't beaten him in 27 games before, and then goes and does that. But no, it's been the only sort of straightforward person you'd expect to be in the semi-finals and final has probably been Gezi, Jack.
Yeah, I would say it's just been pretty straightforward for Gerwin Price, and you'd imagine he's looking to cement his number one spot in the world with a win tonight. But Anderson will have something to say. So yeah, we're excited, Sammy. Excited.
Is it dartsish now? Is that what we're doing?
Dartsish.
Yeah.
More than happy. We've got nothing else to talk about, Dom. So we might as well. Speaking of Anderson, Ben, let's see the back of your shirt.
Oh, very good segue.
Can we get it in? I have to squat like a little hoe.
Oh, very nice.
Right.
First question, Ben. Have you made a bit of a risk getting a lone player on the back of your shirt?
I think that anyone that would have known me over the past sort of 10 or 15 years of supporting Fulham, and maybe will have tuned into the earlier podcast, will know that basically anyone I get on the back of a Fulham shirt leaves the season after anyway. It's sort of like a bit of a curse, like a commentator's curse, if you will, for Fulham players. So for me, it's no real difference. Obviously, in my opinion, Joachim Andersen has been our sign of the season thus far, and I think is the only person that really stood out to me when I wanted to buy the shirt, that he had a few good games, and what more can you say?
Farrell, who do you have on the back of a shirt? I've never seen you with one. Have you got any names on back of shirts?
No, the last player that I got out of choice on the back of a shirt was Steed Malbronk, which I still have. Apart from, I think the 4 has come off, so it looks like I've got Malbronk 1 on the back.
Yeah, I think Malbronk's the last player I have on the back of a shirt as well.
My brother once bought me a Bobby Zamora shirt as well, only because he hated him and I loved him at the time.
Okay.
But yeah, I can't say I've worn it since.
Farrell once bought me a Darren Pratley shirt. That was great.
What, a Bolton one or
Charlton?
I was actually thinking that you were going to wear that. I thought you were going to wear it tonight.
It's safely tucked away.
That. It's like a large boy.
before lockdown, maybe.
I'll read out some comments that have come through, by the way, just on the pod itself. Dan Baker says, love the pod. Well done, fellas, on getting to 300 episodes. Thank you so much, Dan. We've also got here from Colin Bugger. I was going to ask why everybody bar Dom is drinking, and then he takes a swig. Yes, no, we are all on the beers.
Probably too much because I'm still half hungover from yesterday. But
this one's very true. Can't wait to see Dom's connection drop as soon as the dart starts, which I thought was very true. I mean, looking at the season and the relegation battle around us, there's been some half decent results for Fulham this weekend, apart from maybe Brighton coming back against Wolves, which was a bit of a disappointment. But Faz, West Brom are looking like prime September Fulham right now, aren't they?
Yeah, and I mean, one of the best things that probably could have happened, I think, is them sacking Bilic and bringing in Sam Allardyce, who still has this reputation as sort of like a saviour and a hero. But I can't really picture a time, certainly a recent memory, when he was that. I mean, he got his most recent jobs are England, and he lasted one game, and Everton, when they weren't really relegation candidates to start off with. So, there are fans of his and whatnot, but I just don't see that team has enough quality to start off with to be able to compete at this level, and certainly not with Sam Allardyce at the helm anyway. So that really doesn't worry me. Like, when I actually put the game on yesterday, it took me a little bit of time to realise that West Brom were one of our sort of like competitors in that regard, because I feel much more confident about Fulham staying up than West Brom even sort of coming anywhere close to us at the moment, although the table says differently.
Yeah. I like this comment, by the way. It's a slight segue, but by the way, Anguissa also tested positive for being the best centre defensive attacking midfielder in the league, which was very nice. Ben, question here from Paula: is Ben going to be drunk before the end of the show? I guess referring to your bottle of red that you've got going on.
You mean now? Then yes.
Yes, yeah, of course I am. I mean, that's my mum, so yeah, she's gonna. When I go back home for dinner, she's going to laugh.
Didn't actually realise that was your mum. I would assume your mum would have the same surname. Nice one.
I like this from Joe. Yeah. That was all I had to say, really.
Still a few available on the Fulhamish shop. So, look, generally it's January. Fulham haven't made a signing 3 days in. Non says, who do you think Fulham should do what do you think Fulham should do in January in terms of the transfer window? I think we're all fairly agreed, aren't we, that a striker needs to come in. And it was quite interesting, Dom, that Scott mentioned at his press conference last week that he is actively looking for a striker to come in. So kind of what we thought might happen, but a bit of confirmation from Scott there.
Yeah, I mean, if he was, he couldn't really say much else. It's fairly evident that we need a striker. And you said the only out and out one we have is Mitrovic, and that's correct. It's just I'm interested to see when they go out to get a striker, what sort of recruitment strategy they're going to go with. Whether they're going to go with a more experienced Premier League proven striker, someone like Josh King, for example, at Bournemouth, or they're going to go someone in the Championship as well, but who's been scoring a lot of goals in, I don't know, someone like Adam Armstrong, or they're going to go into the European market. I'm interested to see what their sort of strategy is in terms of getting a striker who thinks can guarantee his goals in the Premier League.
Yeah. I mean, Jack, you're still hoping on for Divock Origi, aren't you?
Yeah, I still would like Havok Origi to come in and cause some chaos. Yeah. Look, there's a load of things. I think Adam Armstrong is going to prove to be too expensive. I think that we'd get priced out by the whole fact that he's English and playing in the Championship, and Blackburn are still in the hunt for promotion themselves, even if they've dropped off a little bit. They're still not miles off those playoff places. I think we'd be charged a premium for him, and I'm not sure that that's exactly what I'd be spending on now. I would look to Europe, but I can understand. And there, Tom Grafton here said, I think we need a forward, and I think we need a Premier League proven player, not from the Championship or overseas, given our position. And look, I disagree. I would bring in someone from Europe, but I can understand what the thinking behind this is.
Yeah, I mean, I like this. I mean, I didn't like this, but I mean, I thought Danny Welbeck was a bad shout, and he's proved all right on a free this season for Brighton. He said Sturridge on a free agent to the end of the season. Is that an awful shout?
Daniel Sturridge is made out of Weetabix. Like you put a little bit of hot milk next to him and his leg disintegrates, and that's why I would be signing any Daniel Sturridge.
Sturridge is still living off that Liverpool season.
He was bloody good that season. Let's not have any
He's also living off that goal against Wales in the Euros, but since then he's not really done anything.
No, that is true.
Has he also not got a ban hanging over his head as well? I swear he was banned for a period of time for betting.
It was betting stuff. But wasn't that to bet on him going to a club? And then he didn't go to that club.
He bet on the club.
Really?
And then he didn't go to the club, I swear.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, Kieran Trippier's fallen foul of that, hasn't he? It seems to be something that's happening more and more these days. And I don't know, I feel a bit for Trippier on that one because he told his mates put on the bet and he's the one with the ban. I mean, surely the betting companies just shouldn't have the bets on in the first place if they can be manipulated so easily. It protects no one apart from gambling companies, in my opinion, that rule.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a completely different question. We got a big question about this on Twitter, and I'm sure we might address later. But yeah, of course, I think anything that is not going to protect gambling companies in an age where they already have quite a lot of power probably seems like a reasonably good shout at this point.
Yeah. Right, let's go on to some questions that have come through today. Hang on a second. I was going to try and find one, and it is completely gone. Here we go. Mark Renovich says, for the upcoming QPR game, since we're allowed to play non-Premier League registered players, is this a chance to give K-Mac and Steph Joe the send-off they deserve, or would you use it to play Seri, Onuma to see if they fit into the parts? We've obviously got that game coming up, Farrell, on Saturday. And one thing that was an interesting point that I also saw on Twitter about that QPR game is obviously Leyton Orient earlier in the season were forced to forfeit their game against Spurs in the League Cup. And if Fulham can't get a side together for that QPR game, it won't be rearranged. It will probably be forfeited by Fulham. And with so many players positive, that is actually a real possibility. I've asked you two questions.
I think Dom actually touched it. Well, I was going to say that I think Dom touched on it actually quite well earlier in the fact that it does, in a way, come at a good time when we have a few players on the fringes of the squad who require some game time, because as our squad is getting stretched due to, COVID-related problems, hopefully those players are okay, that, there are quite a lot of players that need some game time and to fit into a system that they're not really ready for as well, because as we've seen just in the last sort of couple of months as the season's gone on, that we don't play this parkable system anymore. We've decided to change it up a little bit. So, I think it does come at a good time to actually sort of play the system that we are playing at the moment and get those players in, like your Josh Onomers, like your Kenny Tetes. It would be nice to see Kevin McDonald and Steph Johansson, but I think Scott Parker's got to have to look at the bigger picture and look at the players that are going to be at his disposal for what is the more important thing, which is the Premier League. And it won't necessarily be the end of the world if we get sort of kicked out the FA Cup because we're unable to field a side. Although I would love to see Steph Johansson score at that end again and wheel away in front of an empty stand and kiss the badge. It would be wonderful.
I mean, annoyingly with the QPR game, Ben, I don't really care this season if Fulham don't have a massive cup run. We all know the Premier League's the priority for us this year. But a bit like the League Cup when we ended up playing against Brentford, it's just annoying that it's QPR because you never want to lose a derby match, but also it's the third round of the Cup and, we're not really in it for the FA Cup this year. So kind of frustrating, really, the draw, because we'll never want to actively lose against QPR. And I remember that Brentford game, it didn't matter at all, but it was just frustrating because it was Brentford and you never want to lose to them, even though we beat them in the biggest game of their lives.
Well, no, you never want to lose to a local rival, regardless of whether it's a cup game or league game or League Cup game. Like, to lose to one of your rivals is horrible regardless of the circumstances. But I think what we need to realise is that we have 9 players out at the moment with a positive COVID test. And it's pretty much not nailed on, but it's nearly a certainty that we may not get a result that is wholly positive for us this year. And I know it sounds so bad to say that against a QPR team we all want to beat, but the circumstances are almost dictating the result here. I like the previous question when he said, would we want to give K-Mac and Steph the send-off they deserve? But I don't think a 2-0 loss to QPR in an FA Cup is a send-off they deserve at all. It's probably actually quite the opposite of what we'd like them to have. So,
Steph would definitely bag against Rangers.
Potentially. I'd love it if he did. But yeah, I think all signs this year have to be set on retaining our Premier League status. And if we lose in the Cup against QPR, then so be it. I mean, we've already lost in the Cup to Brentford, and they hounded us on Twitter like they had won the playoff final, which they didn't. We did. So it can't really get much worse. I mean, if we stay up, then it's all worthwhile in the end.
Yeah. Couple of comments coming in. I've seen that Jack is on the Fulhamish YouTube right now and winding up the masses. This one from Rick says, Dom Betts is a beautiful man. Just want to put that out there. I fully agree, Rick. Dom Betts.
I can't believe your burner is called Rick, Dom.
Yeah, I'd put
Ben
it
Johnson's mum again.
This one from Cam Ramsey. Lampard washes Scotty's brogues. I've seen Cam Ramsey on this one today, but an interesting point. After obviously Chelsea got absolutely battered earlier, who is the better manager, Scott Parker or Frank Lampard?
That's not a question.
Out there.
Look,
Right.
I mean, I got to put this out there once and for all, right? Frank Lampard took Derby from 6th to 6th, and then took Chelsea from 3rd to 4th, and then now is being caught up after having spent 200 million in the window and not being able to use them so that he can accommodate.
He's also lost 2 cup finals in. Parker's won in one he's been in.
It's madness. It's like, look, I'm not suggesting that Scott Parker is the best manager in the world, but he learns from his mistakes. We said this the whole way through. He learns from his mistakes, and he is getting better slowly. I haven't seen anything to suggest to me that Lampard is slowly becoming a better manager. That's all I've got to say.
The thing about Lampard as well, when I've watched any of his pre or post match interviews, he gives off that air of like Mark Hughes, where he sort of, they don't play well, and they certainly haven't played well for the last 8-9 games that I've seen. And he'll be like, "Oh, we did enough to get a result today," and I'm like, "No, you didn't. Like, you were poor today." Like,
beaten
and then
one team in the top 10 all season.
Yeah, and then
That
they
was
sort of,
game where he shouldn't have won anyway.
yeah, and he blames the players quite a lot, which is quite annoying. You can't blame Kepa anymore.
But that's the thing, isn't it? I think just because he's Frank Lampard and Scott Parker is Scott Parker, and because Frank Lampard was given the Chelsea job, there's this almost bias that Frank Lampard is a better manager. And I think I fully agree with Jack, really. Like, I don't think Scott is the greatest manager in football. I mean, sometimes I do, but generally, if I'm being like completely honest, but when you compare him to Frank, like, I don't think Scott would be doing any worse than Frank Lampard in that job. But of course, if Scott was doing the same job, because he's not loved by the Chelsea fans in the same way, he would be out the door by now. And I think there is absolutely no question about it. Speaking of all things Chelsea, there was a rumour today, I think it was in The Sun, so I'm not going to give it the most credence, apologies to Izzy Barker, but it was about Loftus-Cheek and Parker wanting him for 30 million. I mean, is there any substance to this rumour? I saw that and just thought, I mean, A, I cannot imagine that being the case, and B, just why?
Yeah, I don't see why we'd want to buy Loftus-Cheek after what we've seen so far. Like, he's probably played well in maybe 2 halves, or maybe a half and the opening 10 minutes against Sheffield United. Like, I just think it's a non-story, because he hasn't shown anything that other loan players. If we're going to spend 30 million on loan player, we'll be spending 30 million pound on Anderson, not Loftus-Cheek. And I just think it's a completely non-story, because I just don't. Loftus-Cheek, it's not like he's started every game. He's still not match fit. He's like, he wanders around like a penguin. Like, he just waddles on the pitch, and he doesn't really do much. And I just when I saw that this morning, well, I say this morning, I definitely wasn't awake this morning. When I saw it this afternoon, I was just like, no, I just don't see where this story's come from.
I think that there may well be some credence to it in the fact that if someone asked Scott Barker, would you like to keep Ruben Loftus-Cheek? He probably was like, yeah, I would. I think that maybe the exacerbation is that Fulham are willing to pay a world record, a club record fee for his services. And perhaps that's where things have slightly taken a turn for the worse. Look, I still am adamant that we will see a better Ruben Loftus-Cheek in the second half of the season. I don't think this is a player who has finished. I don't think this is a player who, we will not see more from over the course of this season. But at the moment, I think it would be madness for Fulham to be looking at him and thinking, yep, club record on this geezer right now, done deal.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a little bit of a break, and then afterwards we have a lot of nonsense questions. And if you're watching this live on YouTube, you're more than willing to, you're more than able to add some more to them. But we're going to take a quick break, and then afterwards we're going to get getting a bit silly, if we're being honest.
On YouTube, you don't get a break. You get to keep. On
YouTube, there is no breaks. We keep on rolling. I'm trying to find a really.
How delayed am I?
A little bit. Both you and Farrell are a little bit delayed. I'm getting Sammy and Dom quite clearly,
which is staggering because I'm on my parents' Wi-Fi and it is shocking up here. So I'm quite surprised. This one from Mark. This is a little one for the break. Fab 5 on the podcast today. Congrats on 300. I'm curious, what does everyone do for a living outside of Fulhamish? I mean, we can share this kind of info. Dom, what do you? I don't really know what you do for a living.
Neither do I.
I don't actually know what it is you do.
I don't really do one thing. I do like loads of different things. I like do podcast editing. I work brief at a student accommodation on reception. Sometimes I work at a local bingo hall. Wherever's paying me to do whatever. That's where I am. I don't really do one specific thing really.
You're Bugsy Malone. You're like, I just do.
No, I'm not a bingo caller. I work like behind the bar and stuff. Or in reception. But like, I don't know. I don't really do one particular thing. I sort of just do loads of different things, and that's just very annoying when it comes to your touch turn. Though.
You're the new DB from Only Fools and Horses. You're no longer Del Boy. It's Don Betts.
Yeah, just wherever the money is. That's where I am.
Good, that Farrell.
I liked the impression. I liked the thought of you being the person saying two fat ladies on the bingo hall on the stage, calling out the numbers. All the old ladies swooning over you.
That happens anyway when it comes to the bar.
Yeah, exactly. To be fair,
Jack, I think most people probably know what you do, but you might as well.
Suhar nailed it. He was like, Jack working a clothing store in the stock room. I mean, couldn't have nailed it more. I am a professional podcaster now. How about that for a living?
You get paid to talk rubbish.
I get paid to talk now. I mean, to be fair, so do you. Just yours is at a bingo hall.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a valid point.
Faz, what do you do?
Well, in the last week, not very much, to be honest, considering it's that point in between Christmas and New Year. But around that, it's not very exciting. I'm an accountant, essentially, which probably
someone has to be, Faz. Someone has to be.
Yeah, for Fulhamish mainly.
Yeah, you count the pennies for Fulhamish. And Jarms, what do you do?
I work for an advertising agency in digital and print media buying strategy for and on behalf of Ford Motor Company. So, yeah, just if they launch a new car, I decide who it's aimed at and where it goes, basically, and then I buy all the media and execute it.
Adam Fakasa says, this break is like an awkward Fulhamish dinner party. I love it, which I think sums it up. I work on the radio. No one cares what I do. Right, let's crack on with the second part of the podcast. I have so many stupid questions. It's unbelievable. So we will crack on. Welcome to part 2 of the Fulhamish podcast. Fulhamish 300, our live 300th episode. And we don't have any games to talk about. So this part of the podcast and the next part of the podcast are going to be a bit indulgent, a little bit silly. We've all had a couple of beers and Ben's had half a bottle of Merlot. So
out of a whiskey tumbler.
It's absolute chaos here on the podcast.
I was calling you out here.
Dara's having none of it. He's like, what on earth is going on here?
Right, first silly question.
Dara's right.
Actually, I like this one. We'll start with this one for a stupid question. From L. Heffler. Who's the worst signing you've had to talk about in the last 300 episodes? So we started in 2016, so that kind of rules out the Mark Fotheringhams of the world. Who is the worst?
Technically not, though, because we did like our worst Fulham 11, so we have technically talked about terrible play.
He didn't sign in the time we've done the podcast. So who's the worst signing we've made since we started? So that's September 2016. So basically anything from the season we lost in the playoffs. Yeah, Ben, you crack on.
Mine was Marcelo Jallo, and he got so far in my head. He got so far in my head that I wrote an article about him on the Fulhamish website saying why we should never buy him and why we should never play him. Subsequently, obviously, he had one semi-decent game at Wycombe Wanderers, and I got inundated with DMs of him pinging cross-field balls out to the wings for about 2 weeks afterwards and saying that he was Premier League quality. But in actual fact, he never played for us ever again after that, I don't think. So I think Marcelo Jallo's up there with me, and that's probably the worst Tony Khan ball signing we've ever made, in my opinion.
He plays for Lugo now in the Segunda, and he's made 11 starts for them this season. He hasn't been sent off yet, which is a start.
Isn't that where we signed him from?
Yeah, he's eventually found his way back to Lugo.
Oh, I had no idea.
Jack,
your worst signing?
I would potentially say Ragnar Sigurdsson.
No, but he scored Ipswich away.
That was great, and I do agree with you that was useful. But I think it was more kind of like when Jallo signed, I had no expectation that Jallo would be good. But obviously, it was a bit like, okay, Marcelo Jallo is here now. I'm not sure this is going to work out. Fine, but when Ragnar Sigurdsson signed, it's like a classic case of don't buy a player off the back of a tournament that they play well in. And we went and bought a player off the back of a tournament they played well in. And then he was just like not good enough. He wrote a really interesting article about it actually recently, about his time at Fulham, about how he just basically lost all his confidence and all of these things. And he eventually went on, elsewhere and did okay again, but he never reached the heights. And he was just like, I just made the move like way too quickly, thought I was well good, and then realized quite quickly that I wasn't good enough. And it was a bit like, oh, if you're realizing that, then I had to put up with watching it. And it was like one of those difficult, it's a really heartfelt and genuinely a very good interview, but this wasn't great. I'll be honest. It wasn't pleasant for anyone. And I think the expectations made it worse.
Yeah. Dom?
It's not our worst signing, but I just hated having to talk about Anthony Knockout last season. Because it's just
a great shout.
It's just the same conversation. Yeah, he ran about a bit, he cut inside and then skied it into Rose Ed at the Hammersmith end. Or the Putney end, depending on which half it was. But I want to say, well, to be fair, if you're taking the fee, we supposedly paid Brighton for him, then he probably could be put into worse signings. But it was just so frustrating because, well, one guy, Barlow, got dog's abuse or what he said about Anthony Knockout early on in the season. He turned out to be exactly right.
He did.
And then, passion merchant, which he was. And to be fair, I don't want to put it on social media. So actually, I think
exactly.
No, you're not having any credit there. You're not having any credit there.
But no, it was just frustrating because it's the same. We were having the same conversation about Knockout for a whole season, and when it comes to expectation to actual end product, I think he's up there with sort of the biggest difference between the two, really. Because I was expecting the Anthony Knockout we saw when Brighton got promoted, and we saw nothing like that.
Tony Montgomery does make a great point that he was once brilliant in that FA Cup game against Villa. He was absolutely unreal for 90 minutes and then just went back, and that was basically it. It had one unbelievable game. I'm absolutely not standing for this, by the way. That's not okay.
I like Font.
Not okay. Rui Font worked very hard.
I didn't think that Font was a bad signing. I was just desperately sad it never worked. That was more my feeling.
Oh yeah, after he bagged it, that Ipswich away on the bank holiday weekend, I thought he was going to be world class.
I don't remember that game.
Yeah,
he was.
He was unbelievable. That finish for the second goal, unreal finish.
Yeah. This is a good shout, and I think we might have forgotten this one. We spoke a lot of time discussing him. Hozabed.
No,
don't do that. Don't do that to Ben.
No, the whole Hotspur thing is that if he'd scored that free kick against QPR, he would have gone on to make 300 appearances for Fulham, scoring 93 goals. That's the hill I will die on.
Yeah, I agree. I actually thought Joseph Edwards was a decent signing for us. He'd come off a great season at Vallecano and had a decent game against Middlesbrough in the Cup. He deserved more than being released back to poor old Celta Vigo.
Next question that I wanted to ask was Harry Healy says, when was the first Fulham game you all attended? So when was the first Fulham game? So Farrell, if you can, think back to the 60s, what was that first game that you attended?
Yeah, in the 60s when I was commentating on that game as well. I thought for a second the question was when was the first game that we all attended together? And I was like, oh, I'm not sure about that one. But I think the first game was 1993 and we lost 3-1 at home to Cardiff. So yeah, it wasn't a particularly memorable day apart from there was a striker for Fulham.
Me and Dom weren't born.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out. Well, at least there's one person in the room right now who has the memories of when things weren't so good. Although that might be a good thing, actually. Don't know.
I can't remember I don't know what the exact first game I went to, but the first game I remember like a genuine thing from, and I must have been very young, was Boxing Day when we beat Watford 5-0. And I was in the Hammersmith end with my dad, and I was sitting on the rails in the Hammersmith end because apparently that's what I used to. And I was just remember being the coldest person alive. And my dad was like, he'd given me his jumper and he had his jacket on over a t-shirt and it was freezing. And then he kept just giving me layers because I kept being like, Dad, it's really cold. I want to go home. We were 3-0 up after about 20 minutes. And he was like, we are not going home. We're 3-0 up after 20 minutes. This doesn't happen to us. And so my dad stood there in a t-shirt and I had about 15 layers on me. Like, I just want to go home. I'm so cold. So that's my first memory of a Fulham game. Although I imagine it wasn't my first one because I think I was a season ticket holder at that point. Someone else could probably have one now.
I was waiting to see who's next jumping in. I was like, you go ahead, Jones.
Yeah. Okay, mine was back in 2005. My dad got me and him a Kids for a Quid ticket. My dad's a Barnet fan, and at that point, I was doing what all the kids in Essex do and support someone that isn't your local team. And I went along to Fulham and we watched Fulham 3, Aston Villa 3. When I think Liam Ridgewell scored 2 and Brian McBride scored 2, and it was absolutely freezing cold walking back to Putney Bridge, much like Jack was in his first ever Fulham game. I think I was probably the coldest person in the world as well, sitting on the wooden seats in the Johnny Haynes. And that was the start of something. I think when you walk down Stevenage Road and you see the facade of the Johnny Haynes and you think, I could definitely do this week in, week out, even if it is a 2.5-hour trek across Essex and across London. I can go for that. So yeah, 2005 was my first ever game.
That goal by McBride, I think he scored 2 headers that game, and the second one was an unbelievable header at the back post. I think it was one of those underrated Fulham goals. If anyone remembers it, obviously just me.
Yeah,
I don't have much in the way, mate. I'm not going to lie.
I don't remember rogue home games against Birmingham in 2005.
Look it up, sports fans. It's a cracker.
Dom?
Mine was 2-0 win against Leicester City in, I think, 2003, 2004. I think, at Loftus Road. That was my first game because my primary school used to because Fulham did the training, used to get cheap tickets through them. So my first game was in 03-04, and then I think my first season ticket was 2 seasons later, the season we beat Chelsea, and then been a season ticket holder basically ever since then, really.
Yeah. My first game was Fulham 2, Southampton 0 in I think September 2001, and I had an amazing unbeaten record of going to Fulham games for about 2 years, long into our time at Loftus Road, and I think then Danny Murphy scored a penalty for Liverpool, and it ruined my unbeaten record. But famously before then, Farrell likes to point out that I was a Man United fan. I wasn't really a football fan at all, but I got taken by a colleague of my mum who was a Fulham fan, and I didn't really like to support any football team. If I said anyone, I said Man United, but not really. But yeah, that was my first Fulham game, and never really looked back. I had one season of the old cottage, which I like to reflect on nicely, which was just a good time. But yeah, Farrell loves to bring out that I used to support Man United to anyone that will listen to him at any kind of function where we're together.
I think I must have made that comment once, and it's been living in your head ever since.
Yeah, literally, Farrell is rent free in your gaff.
Rent free. So next question comes from TJ. Says, since you've been doing this since 16-17, can you look back at some of the crazy moments, such as the train station quote, Ranieri's McDonald's run, Savisa's Triple T tweet, and any others you can think of? Can we just think of some of your favourite kind of weird moments that have happened to do with Fulham since we started this podcast in 2016? I mean, for me, I think the whole Craig Klein thing was particularly notable. When all of that kicked off that day, I was like, what is happening? This is absolute peak Fulham. 16-17 was just a basket case of which I look back on fondly. But Jack, your kind of favourite weird Fulham moment since we started the pod?
Actually, it got brought up the other day, but being sent home from Reading after the fog had cleared and they abandoned the game was one of the weirdest nights of my life. I remember being there, being like, I don't know what's going on. And I remember it was the day, obviously it was the day before New Year's Eve. And on New Year's Eve, I was meant to be driving up to Edinburgh. And because we got sent home early from the game, got back to Acton about, I don't know, probably like 9:30. 10 o'clock, and it was like, oh, pubs are open, should we go for a couple of drinks? And ended up getting absolutely on one, and like basically woke up the next morning and was like, oh, I'm meant to be on a train to Edinburgh and having to like scramble around to see, like, my mate was like, oh, we're driving, do you want to come with us? We had to like scramble across London to get in a car, and then being like, oh, I feel so sick, sleeping the whole way up to Edinburgh, basically just been hungover as sin through the whole of Hogmanay and being really confused as the whole thing. And it's all because that game shouldn't have been cancelled and was.
I still didn't see what it was like in the second half. I think I was in the concourse and someone told me it's been cancelled. I was like, you're having me on it.
Like, you could tell the fans have been in stadiums.
The fog had cleared. It was so annoying. You were like, it was really foggy, and now it's not foggy.
I think you got back to Acton, and I think I was still in a pub in Reading when you.
Yeah.
I think I was in Reading until like 10:30 in the evening in some random pubs. Didn't get home till like midnight.
You were the one to end up in Edinburgh, weren't you, Dom? Not Jack.
Yeah. No, to be fair, I only had fall asleep on tubes. I don't tend to do it on trains, so I'm not too bad. Although I do tend to just go around the Victoria line over and over again for about 4 hours. So.
What about when you drink?
Well, when I drink, it's the Northern line. I'll wake up in like Edgware or something. Feel like I'm standing at the gates of hell here, waking up in the depths of North London, which just isn't needed.
Farrell, your weirdest Fulham moment since we started the pod. Good suggestion here from George Cooper, which is Kamara getting arrested. That was bonkers. And
this one too from Aaron.
Yeah, I was literally going to say Kamara getting arrested at the training ground because it was just so unexpected. I would have gone for the whole Craig Klein saga, which seems to still go on. Like, you know, it's going to go on as long as Neighbours has. It's just going to keep rolling on for the next couple of decades. Going to end up on Channel 5 as a soap, perhaps at one point.
Ben, your weirdest Fulham moment. I feel like you always remember. You can dig into the crates for these kind of things.
Some of the weirdest ones. Tony Khan telling a supporter to go to hell via Twitter was pretty funny. Tony Khan saying that we've become a yo-yo club and inciting the whole of Twitter a few weeks ago was incredibly funny, and apologising on behalf of Scott basically caused all of the Fulham universe to go into meltdown. My personal one,
TK, to be fair, does have the entire fan base on strings.
He does. My personal favourite was I drove all the way up to Birmingham for that away game where we had to win to go up or to stand a chance of going up. And I'm going for a wee in the concourse, and someone comes up
Not in the
behind me
toilet,
and
just
taps
in
me on the
the
shoulder.
concourse, Brendan.
Yeah. Someone come up behind me, taps me on the shoulder and says, "Are you Ben from Fulhamish?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he waited for me to finish going to the toilet and attempted to shake my hand before I'd washed my hand. And then I saw him again at a game in Norwich City, and he tapped me on the shoulder again. And this time, thankfully, I had clean hands to shake his hand. But yeah, I see him quite a lot, actually. He's a really nice bloke. But that was one of the weirdest things I've come across.
Is he tuned in? Because that would be quite good.
It was Dom.
It was, but I genuinely is a lovely bloke. But that was that took me caught me off guard quite a few times. Yeah.
At that game, about 20 minutes into it, Collins John just randomly appeared and sat in the row in front of us and was well into the game. It was beautiful.
Nathan getting on Sky at the Derby game was pretty class.
What was that? I've not heard that.
When we scored and Nathan was just going absolutely mental.
Yeah,
that was enjoyable. Enjoyed that.
Nathan being Nathan to the nation.
Yeah, exactly. The whole nation got to see Nathan Mine in his pomp, and that is something I am so here for.
I remember after that game. I was going to say, after that game, Charlie Cooper, after the Derby game, recognised me on the pitch, and that was a bonkers moment where I was like, he was like, "You Sammy from Fulhamish?" I was like, "Yes, and you're Charlie Cooper, who's about 6,000 times more famous than I am." But big up Charlie Cooper, because I know he likes the Fulhamish.
One of the most weird things I had was when we were interviewing Collins John, Sammy, and you were mouthing at me that he was something to do with Birmingham City, and I thought that you were trying to tell me that he was coming out of retirement to play for Birmingham City. So I asked Collins John if he was coming out of retirement to play for Birmingham, and he just went, "What are you on about, mate?" And then obviously a few weeks later, on a Charlie Cooper related note, we obviously played football with Charlie. And I turned up with my cousin Alfie, and Alfie could barely talk to me because he was so starstruck by Charlie. We then saw him 2 weeks later in Nando's at Luton on Boxing Day. We had Nando's with him. Unbelievable.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There you go. What a guy.
He is a top bloke. Okay, right. Let's move on with the weird questions. We'll do this one to end the part from Lucas. He says, on a toilet roll holder, do you have the loose toilet roll end coming over the top or dangling from below? Dom Betts, I'm expecting a lengthy answer. Dom Betts, are you above or below?
No, me and Luke always have in-depth conversation about bog roll. We have a whole list comparing different ones we had in different ones in Prague for the Czech Republic England game. Don't go to the White Horse on Town Square. The toilet paper there is diabolical. Don't. It's like sandpaper. I always have it hanging down. But to be fair, in my upstairs bathroom, there's not even a toilet roll holder, so it just sits on the edge.
I thought the question might be on the toilet roll, what pictures of what person would you have on the paper?
Frank Lampard.
Oh, that was the first one I was going to have as well, actually.
Jack, who would you have? I have no answer.
I've not thought about this. I would disagree with Dom though. I think it would be over the top. You'd want the toilet roll.
Yeah, it's always over the top. But people that go the other way are weird. I can't quite get my head around that.
At the end of the day, you're wiping your ass with it. It doesn't really matter which way it's coming, does it?
It's true. This is a good weird moment, by the way.
I was there for this, and yeah. Kelly Summers interviewing myself and Tom live on BBC One, and she's asked me what do I think of the cup run today, and I give a really respectable answer. And the reason that Dom says that he wants us to lose today against Villa is because he wants Charlton away on a Saturday, and you couldn't see Kelly's face because it was zoomed in on Dom. Kelly just looked around at her producer thinking, Why does he care if it's on a Saturday?
All I'm saying is, 2020 was going to be a terrible year when this was the first thing that happened. So I think it was on the third or fourth of January, but it wasn't on a Saturday. It ended up being a Tuesday. It was a terrible game of football.
It was maybe the worst game of football ever. Poor old Kelly though. Kelly's lovely. She had to put up with Dom chatting absolute nonsense for the entirety of that interview.
Yeah.
Why did you take Dom in hindsight, Sammy? What a ridiculous thing to do.
I don't know.
BBC.
I don't know. The BBC were like, "Oh yeah, we want your squad full of focus. Who would you like to take out of Fulhamish?" And I don't know. I just thought change it up. I'll take Dom along.
Dom's trying to defund the BBC.
that was the start of my progress. But it's a valid point. It is a valid point that you'd rather chant away be on a Saturday than a Tuesday. And if it means losing,
I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
So it's just you got to break the mold sometimes and get.
No, but that Villa game was actually class because Harrieta scored an absolute howitzer, and we all had a great time.
After knockout, I scored one as well, wasn't it?
It was literally howitzer central, and then Rodak made the most unbelievable save of all time. It was a great game. We had a great fun at that Villa game.
Yeah, I would have taken a loss. It meant Charlton Wales on a Saturday though. So that's the moral from the story.
And Charlton Away was one of our last away day experiences, really.
Yeah, 0-0, wasn't it? It was boring.
Yeah, it was the worst game ever. The only good thing about Charlton, the only good thing about that game is you could watch the second half from the bar.
Oh,
yeah.
That was literally it.
One last question for this part. Best Fulham kit in your opinion? I'm warming to this year's. Looks sexy in the dark. I mean, Ben could try that out for us now by turning the lights.
I assume it means the yellow.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Is he all right?
Me or Theo?
Both, probably, at this point.
Favorite kit?
I think Ben looks sexy in the dark.
The red and black GMB stripes.
Yeah, that is a gorgeous kit.
I was
weirdly
talking about that earlier.
I do like this Red Demon one, but the red and black stripy GMB is better. I just couldn't find it in my wardrobe.
I used to have one of those that red GMB one, and I accidentally left it in a pub in Clapham before going to Crawley away in pre-season, whenever it was, like 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Oh, was that the Costas Staphylidis masterclass?
Yeah, and I think actually Collins John was actually a trialist for Crawley that day and was warming up and was just basically warming up by the Fulham fans, even though the rest of his teammates were warming up the other side.
Can we just agree that this is the wrong answer? No, not that. This.
George Singer just chatting absolute rubbish as usual. There's probably some statistical reason why.
Even Rick's got on it as well. Undefeated Arab kit.
Yeah, but as a kit, it's pony.
Yeah,
I would say the Yellow Demon Internet.
Yeah, I can show you that one. Hang on.
I've just bought that one on eBay actually. Got it coming in a few days.
I bought a classic football shirt. Said it was a small and turned up and it was an extra large, so it didn't really help.
Yeah.
I could fit into that one.
I think the one that's turning up is actually a small. So if you want to do a swap, I don't mind.
Oh, and I've already sold the extra large.
Oh.
For me, either of the Pizza Hut kits. Scott Allen's got it right. Either of the Pizza Hut kits. Mwah. The red and black away, particularly.
They're overrated because it was so funny that we were sponsored by Pizza Hut. Like, the kits themselves are just fine, but the fact
Pizza Hut and Adidas is such a brilliant combination, though.
Yeah, it was a flex, to be fair.
Yeah.
One last shout would be the one with the black sleeve, just that black sleeve there, which is the one that I've got Mal Bronk on the back.
Yeah.
0304, and a good football team to go as well.
The only problem is those dabs.com kits just fitted horribly. The hole to put your head in is absolutely tiny.
You'd be all right, wouldn't you?
No, I got a massive strawberry head.
If you're slightly out of your budget.
Right, we're going to take another quick break, and then afterwards we will wrap up our 300th ever podcast. Welcome to the break again.
The breaks are the best bit.
Yeah, we've rapidly lost listeners, but not caring too much. Shout out to everyone that's still here.
Because the darts are about to start, Sammy. That's why we've lost listeners.
What time is the darts?
It kicks off in about 6 minutes.
No, I reckon walk-ons won't be till 22.
Yeah, but that's why we've lost listeners. By the way,
yeah.
Okay. Was the coverage of the darts?
Well, yeah, they want to see Wayne Mardle just chat utter shit.
Dom's got really bad opinions about darts commentators.
I don't.
Like,
Wayne
football.
Mardle's awful.
No, Wayne Mardle
Yeah.
is awful, but he's not as bad as Chris Mason.
No, Chris Mason's class. Chris Mason's
Chris
class.
Mason's the worst.
When you
Yeah,
say, when
to get
you
rid
say
of- yeah.
Chris Mason, you think of the darts player, and I think of the person on BBC News.
I don't know who Chris Mason on BBC News is, mate.
I'm
Sorry.
afraid not.
I only know the darts.
Is he some random? Is he some random like Belfast correspondent that you like have just?
Yeah, Sammy knows all the
Think about that.
correspondents. He's
I
just
know
one of the
all-
people that Dom's trying to defund.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
but on ITV4 though, it's better. Jackie Oatley is a very good host.
Jackie Oatley is a very good host. I will give you that all day long.
The only person I like on Sky is probably John Parr. When it comes
John
to the
Parr,
actual
No,
pundits.
Laura Turner's been absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, but she's not Chris Mason, so
Yeah, which is her biggest strength, I'd say.
None of these things make any sense to me, but I'm sure these people are all great. I'm going to tune into the darts tonight just so I know what the flecking hell you're talking about.
you probably still won't.
No, I won't. I won't.
It's
I don't-
terrible.
Come in. Again, delivery.
Oh, what's the delivery?
Oh,
What are you getting?
Beer.
are they delivering straight to your bedroom?
Oh.
Delivery.
Shout out Tom
JJ
Collins.
Collins.
TJ.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hello, mate.
Double wham. Cheers, bud.
Can we
Can
get
we do a
Tom on instead
substitution
of
for the
Jack?
final third?
It would be a good swap. It'd be a positive swap for you. It would be like switching Bjorn. It would be like switching John Arne Riise for Bjorn Helge Riise.
Exactly.
We all know which Riise brother we prefer.
Yes, exactly.
Bjorn Helge Riise provided way more assists than John Arne Riise ever did.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
Looking at the top assist chart for the 2010 Europa League is hilarious. You got Bjorn Helge Riise up there, and then it's like David Villa, Angel Di Maria, and Luis Suarez.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Oh, I've got a great question for the break.
What would your darts nickname be? Well, you're the darts expert, so you clearly probably have this already thought out.
I actually played at uni, so I actually do have a nickname. My nickname was the Chorister because I used to be a choir boy, obviously, and I used to come on to Zay Doctor Priest. That was my walk-on. So yeah, Harry, that was my darts nickname.
I don't
It'd
know how.
probably just be
the same as Champions League.
Yeah, it's what the Champions League theme ripped off. This is also why I will die on the hill that the Europa League theme is better than the Champions League theme because it's an original composition, not a mug off.
It's also a better song.
I totally agree.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd probably just go with Prince now, though. To be honest, at this point in my life, I feel like I've made the step up from one to another. I wouldn't want to, box myself off into the choir boy category anymore. I feel like I've moved on. Dom, what was your nickname?
Pony, probably, because I ain't that good at darts. But I don't know what my darts nickname would be.
Dom Pony Betts is
Because I
Galloping
think
up to the
if we're in a pub playing around the world, I'll do terrible. But if we're playing 501, my record's actually all right. So I just luck out and get like a lucky double 13 at one point.
The original biggest fan of the pod, George Rossiter, is a pretty decent darts player.
Yeah,
that's
half our chat.
I gave him his nickname, which is the Cashier, because he always checks out.
I like this suggestion from Manny the Confused Turtle, Jarman the Barman.
He drinks through all the profits.
Better than the one I would have given you, that's for sure.
Do you get slams in darts? Is it like tennis?
We got majors, but you have got the Grand Slam of darts, which is his own tournament.
Could I be called Slammy James then for all the competitions I win?
You could if you won some competitions.
Okay, there we go.
I think it's where
nickname.
Sammy's darts obsessions.
I think it's one of those things where people change their nickname sometimes after they do things. Like Brendan Dolan was the first person to throw a televised 9-darter in a double start, and so he changed his nickname to the History Maker, which is a pretty big flex. I've always thought.
Right. Oh, Farrell, your name, your darts nickname before we start the next part, of course.
Oh, I like AF's suggestion. That's it's better than anything that I could come out with.
Surely you just
really.
be the Mad Monk.
Mad Monk, yeah, I suppose.
Like the geezer in what's it?
Bulletproof
Yeah. Or no, I was thinking more. I was thinking more not the longest yard, the British one. I'm going mad.
An old football coach of mine used to call me Frank the Tank, which stuck in when I didn't really enjoy, but it stuck.
Your name's not Frank.
I know. That's literally the best I can come up with.
Are we dealing with this one before?
Yeah, especially after yesterday. We'll bring this up.
Mean Machine Farrell Monk. Obviously, this is a question built to divide. Like, obviously, I'm Celtic. Obviously, Dom is Rangers. Did you really want to bring? I mean, Dom will have done, yeah, obviously. But do you really want to bring this? I would say that Benjamin is Celtic by the skin of his teeth, and I would say that Farrell and Sammy are probably indifferent to the point of giving a fuck. But I would probably say that maybe Sammy would err to Rangers and Farrell would err to Celtic.
Interesting. I would actually err the other way to Celtic.
I would actually err to Rangers, and that's purely based on the fact that Steven Gerrard, the best player of all time, is manager of Rangers.
Yeah, exactly. Best English manager around.
I don't partake in Rangers or Celtic. There's only one team in Scotland for me, and it's Motherwell, because I'm a shareholder.
The Well.
Interesting.
Stillman.
Did you sack the manager?
I don't know.
No,
you do it yourself as a shareholder. You sacked the manager. I only own shares in Real Murcia.
I used to own shares in Ebbsfleet United.
Oh, that whole
I
bought into that. It was
Real Murcia, Huelva, Real Oviedo, and Motherwell now.
Nice.
Multi-club shareholder. I'm basically Jorge Mendes of Chelmsford.
Have you ever made any money?
No, you don't do it to make money.
Keeping them alive.
Yeah, no one owns a football
alive
club to make money.
We so there's the interesting one with Murcia is when they basically went under, they put their shares up for sale, and I bought exactly enough shares, which officially I think cost me about £23, so that I can go to board meetings if I want. So me and Ben own the same amount of shares in Murcia, but we are both entitled to turn up to.
Have you guys been to Murcia?
No, but they're called.
It's a really good place.
Yeah, good question for Farrell.
I am the majority shareholder in Adam Farquharson's head right now.
Yeah, exactly. Fair play in his apartment. Right, Sammy, on with the show. I think.
Right. This part's going to be a bit more about Fulhamish, so we'll do 10 minutes here, and then we'll finish up the pod. Thanks to all of you that have managed to stay through this. I am quite staggered, to be frank.
What are you doing?
Yeah,
why are you here? The Darts cover just started. What are you doing here?
Okay. Part 3 of the Fulhamish podcast, Fulhamish 300. I am Sammy, and I'm here with Dom, Jack, Ben, and Farrell. So for the last part of the podcast, because we haven't got any games to talk about or anything like that, I wanted to give you a couple of questions slightly more related to Fulhamish. So I'll start with John E. Harkness, who says, congrats on 300, exceptional effort. Did you think starting the podcast that you'd make 2, let alone 300? Jack, I'll put this to you. Did you ever envision Fulhamish getting much past a few pods?
I think the first time you put me and Dom in a room together, I'm surprised that either of us came out alive. Never mind with the impression of making 300 podcasts. But here we are, fast friends despite being weird rivals in almost everything we do. So yeah, I mean, look, I went into it. Sammy, as you know, the reason I basically got the call up was because I'd messaged you for ages trying to be your co-host on FFC radio, because I was like, I'd like a career in the radio, please. And it sort of spelled from there. So I was kind of not 100% sure what I was letting myself in for. But as soon as it started, I was pretty confident that we'd get a decent run going. It seemed to work from whistle go, no?
It did, really. Ben, you were the hardest to pin down for a podcast. Did you think you'd be here 300 podcasts later?
No, to be honest with you, I thought. I thought you'd probably get rid of me after the first one I'd done with you, because I came with a notepad full of points and statistical irrelevancies and tactical formations that I thought you probably wouldn't want to ever hear ever again. So when you asked me to come back for the second week in a row, I was mildly surprised. But the one thing you've never told me after all this time is you've told me once before actually that someone tipped you off that I might be fairly good to get on a podcast because I used to write about Fulham all the time, but you've never told me who it actually was, and you always claim that you can never remember. So it'd be good to know at one point who it was.
It was Jeff Bruce, who works for the club. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly,
Really?
that Jeff told me about you and that you were a good fan. So I can't remember though, because I don't remember talking to Jeff about this podcast specifically, but I remember Jeff putting me in your direction.
It was back in the Sonic Hits glory days.
I always remember you looking back at the messages and you being like, "Would you like to come on a podcast, mate?" And it looked so bad for me because I didn't answer, but I was just like, why would anyone want to ever listen to me? But I'm so glad I've done it. Obviously, 300 down, being roundly booed by everyone in the pub at the 200 live was great.
Yeah, it was great.
It's just been such a good journey, and obviously we won the podcast of the year last year. So no, I could never imagine it being as good as it has been, and I'm thankful for all of you boys and all the friendships I've got out of Fulhamish.
Didn't the booing come around because you said that Steph Joe wasn't that good anymore, and that you quite rightly were? Well, not that we love Steph Joe, but he didn't feature that much after that game. So maybe you were proved right after the booing.
I was not accepting that early doors. I was like, no, I'm in that.
He had a really, really bad game. For some reason, he had played on like the left-hand side of midfield, and everything that had gone through him had just gone really badly. And I just said, I don't think he had a great game. Sean Davis come up and was like, I'm going to get the crowd on side. I'm going to slag Ben off. So he did. He was like, the guy who was up here saying Steph Johansson had a bad game is talking absolute rubbish. And there I am just by the bar with a pint, just crying into it. Like, cheers, mate. I went up to him later when I was about 5 pints deep and just said to him, cheers for mugging me off, mate. And he was like, no worries, mate, at all. And then obviously we got a picture and that, and he's just such a good lad. So it all worked out in the end. I got a picture with Sean, so it's all good.
This one from Rick, we've definitely had a few of these. Any times where you didn't feel like doing the pod after a terrible performance? I never forget that, Farrell, there was a time where myself, you and Jack did a pod after we got beaten by Brentford 2-0. And I think we had to go to Jack's dad's office to record it. And I remember it was like a couple of seasons in, and me and you had just played football and got battered, as we tended to do in that football team. And that was probably one of the moments, but there's been a few, haven't there, where doing a pod hasn't been as fun as you maybe would have thought.
I remember that pod very, very well, and it's one of those sort of like moments. It was like a watershed moment in the entire season, and it sticks out in my memory specifically. And it's a bit of a humble brag because I said at that time that I still think that we might challenge for promotion, or at least get promotion, or get promotion. And both you and Jack basically looked at me as if like I was the craziest person in the world, and we ended up getting promoted. And
well done,
so that one has always stuck in my memory. I mean, I still think I'm mad whenever I'm optimistic about Fulham, really, because it very rarely goes our way anyway. But I don't think that there hasn't been that many times where I thought I really don't want to do the podcast afterwards, because I know I'm speaking only for myself here, but I mean, I like talking about football much like 99% of other people do too. I just get the opportunity to have a little bit of an audience, and I don't know why Sammy keeps asking me to turn up week in, week out.
You're good with the accounts, that's why. This one for Jack.
Oh, Sammy, can we just, before we move on from that question, can we just talk about the Whisper podcast?
Oh, yeah. That was what I was going to come on to. There's the question.
Okay, fair enough. Oh, okay, there it is. No more Whisper pods. I've decided that AMSR is not really my thing for now, although it depends how good or how well Ranks FC goes. I might have to, make it an OnlyFans if there are people that are really into it. But no, hopefully you think, okay, we know we're gonna hit here. That was the worst. That Huddersfield defeat. I've never been more angry. The Brentford ones were bad. The one on the way home from Southampton after we'd had a night out in Southampton and we were just like absolutely wrecked on a train trying to record on the way home so that we didn't have to do it when we got back. And it was my birthday. And all I did was for the whole thing was just shout Ranieri out. That was a bad one. There haven't been too many desperate, but do you remember when we started, we couldn't buy a win?
No.
The first 5
No,
points.
we were
Yeah.
unbeaten. We were unbeaten, and I think that Birmingham game was our first defeat, which we did.
And then we did 5 pods, and I don't think we won a game in the next 5 pods.
No.
We
That
thought
was-
there was a Fulhamish curse.
Yeah, that whispering pod was a weird one. There was someone that asked a question, and I've forgotten their name, I'm really sorry, but said, is there any Fulhamish podcasts I'm a fairly new listener I should go back and check out? And my instant reactions would be like, listen to the Breda Hangland interview, probably the Tony Khan interview. There's a couple of nice ones there. I really enjoyed the one I did with Richard Osman, and any one that was straight after one of the playoff wins as well was a great podcast. But the whispering one is a bit of folklore. After we lost to Huddersfield 1-0, and myself and Jack had to record it super quietly because my mate Alex, who I was staying with, was waking up at 4 a.m. in the morning and was in the next room and specifically told us to shut up. So we had to whisper. We didn't quite realise how badly we were whispering until it came out. That was a particularly weird podcast. Dunty says, best all-time podcast name. Can anyone think of one here? Because obviously
Don't ask me. I don't remember what our last one was called. And I was on that.
The one that has always stuck in my memory was, I mean, it's quite recent. It's the Bobby Decade Over Reed one, which was fantastic. I can't remember who came up with that 3-word review, but I think it's one of the best podcast names. I'm sure it became the podcast name.
Leave
Yes,
this one
yes,
with me. I'm
yes.
gonna have a dig.
Okay, I'm going to leave that one with Jack. He can go back through. One final question, which I wanted to end on, which I just thought was an exceptional question and definitely deserves to be the final one, from Chris F. What do you think will be the key Fulham issues when you reach episode 600? So obviously we've been going just over 4 years now. So if it was episode 600 at the same rate, you would expect it to be in about 4 years' time. So that'll be 2025. What will be the key Fulham issues in 2025? Dom, I'll start with you. Are you serious or not?
Nice. What team we're picking in the UEFA Conference League final?
Where will it be held? Out of interest, that
Somewhere, some rogue city on the Eastern Bloc. I don't. Probably. Let's go with. Yeah, let's go something like Bucharest or Sofia.
No, Skopje, the King Philip Stadium.
I'd love it to be there.
Sarajevo.
Oh, fantastic!
I think we might be contemplating Slavisa Kanovic coming back. I think he'd have had enough of a managerial hiatus then. He'd be the right age. He'd have learnt a few things. He'd have seen some new stuff, and he'd be ready to make things right at Fulham in 2025.
Or does Tom Kenny suit his deep-lying defensive midfielder role, like the Danny Murphy quarterback role, and when he's approaching his later years?
Ben, anything that Fulhamish might be discussing in episode 600?
I think we're probably going to be is Sammy Jr. and Jack Jr. going to mean that we're going to have to get a new host and the co-host? And is the Saudi Arabian consortium that have taken us to League One deserve to still be the owner of the club? And how are we going to get out of this mess?
Oh, well, I mean, you never know. I mean, who could have predicted how amount of things? So much has happened since we started Fulhamish. Imagine we done Fulhamish from 2006 to 2010. It would be rubbish. But, 2 promotions, 1 relegation. Who knows what will happen this season? All of those mad times, the Visa, Ranieri, and now Scott Parker. There's been an awful lot that's happened at Fulham in that time, and it's been great to be doing Fulhamish. So thank you so much for watching today.
Around when Rene Moulinstein was here.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sam.
No, I know.
It'll be us trying to do the lineup when we see Muhammad Tankovic is up front in a false 9 away at United.
I wonder how our lineup generator will be able to handle 15 different substitutions.
Yeah.
We've got, by the way, I just wanted to just put a couple of these suggestions for the best names I've been looking through. And there are some exquisite ones. Marching Onoma together after we beat Leeds was absolutely excellent. If I was a Doy, we've had Blood Sugar, Seth Magic.
Blood Sugar Cess Magic was an early favourite of mine.
To ream the impossible ream was a good one. The Lions, Mitrovic in the wardrobe was a bit of a classic. Red Rodak Redemption, I thought was classic, but I actually do think the best title we've ever had was after that unbelievable night where we hammered Millwall at the Cottage on a Tuesday night, the death by 1,000 passes. Our podcast name was Super Cavi Goes Ballistic, Millwall Are Atrocious. And thank you very much.
Hey.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for listening today and watching as well. If you were one of the few hundred people that tuned into the live YouTube stream, it's been a bit of a shoddy podcast. We didn't have much to discuss. It's been a bit self-indulgent at times, but I think after 300 podcasts of talking nothing but the latest Fulham game and the up-and-coming Fulham game, and especially with no games around, it felt like a perfect opportunity to be slightly self-indulgent. So if you've enjoyed it, fantastic. If not, then on Thursday, we'll be very much back to business. It'll be myself, Jack and Peter, looking forward to that QPR game. Does it happen? Doesn't it happen? Who knows? But thank you so much for getting involved with Fulhamish down the years. We couldn't do this without people listening and without all of your tweets, 3-word reviews, questions, emails, etc., etc. So thank you so much. Loads of people getting involved now on YouTube as well. Scott Allen, Rick, Joseph Gunning, Katrina Fuller, Charlotte Jarman, presumably related to Ben, but I don't know. But all it remains for me to do is to thank my guests. To Don Betts, thank you very much.
All right.
Jack Collins, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sammy.
Farrell Monk, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the darts, everyone.
And Ben Jarman, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sammy. Thanks, everyone, for 4 years of nothing but unwavering support.
I thought you were just going to finish at nothing now.
We've been Fulhamish. Thank you very much. Come on, you whites.
You whites.
You whites.
Toodles.
We're done.
Boom.
And that is how you do a podcast, ladies and gentlemen, or not. So you can see how
I'll say not more than anything else.
you can see just how many mistakes
I think the overarching thing here is the overarching thing here is that we put out way too much content.
To be fair, though, you didn't have to redo your intro about 5 times, Sammy, so it's good. It's a good podcast.
Well, it's just the pressure of being live. As soon as the red light comes on.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, Ben didn't go every time that Sammy goes, it's that, and he goes,
Honestly, nothing pisses me off, particularly when it's in person as well, and he has absolutely no excuse to, but he just does it because he likes to spite me. I don't do it to Jack, and I know when Jack posts the podcast, it's to Jack.
Rent free.
Of course, he doesn't do it to me. Why would he do it to me?
It's not really fun when you do it, Jack.
Yeah,
because he likes
all the time.
It's already bad enough when I'm hosting. Never mind having to stop it every couple of minutes.
Well, thank you all for watching tonight and getting involved, and for all the comments and all the love, etc. We really do appreciate it. So, lads, I will speak to you all soon, and here's to another 300.
Take it
Thanks
easy.
very much, everyone.
Cheers for watching, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
See you later.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.